I want to do a video talking a little bit about this book by Martin Heidegger, Being in Time, Sein und Zeit. I just did a video on the 6th chapter of the first division, which has to do with being as care, and I'm going to talk about how his idea of care relates to his idea of freedom and what freedom is. Freedom is kind of more elaborated in the second division. However, it is given some time and some care in the first division. So I guess I want to talk about being. Of course, that's whenever we're talking about Heidegger, we're talking something having to do with being, usually. And I want to kind of discuss how care relates to freedom. I did a video where I was talking about thrownness, fallenness, and understanding, and how that relates to care. And now in this video, I'm going to talk about how care relates to freedom. And in the first division, what he does is he kind of tries to get at uncovering the meaning of being. It's kind of the fundamental ontological question that he's kind of trying to cut at. And I think he does so. He kind of uncovers the being of Dasein via being in the world, by looking at worldhood, being in, and how one is in the world, being with others, and being as care. And he talks about that and kind of goes into very big detail and elaborating on that. So, and I guess if you want to learn more about that, there are some people on YouTube, including Corey Anton and Chad African. I think he's going by a different name on YouTube now, but they both have some good videos. I do also have some videos. I have a video on each chapter of the first division as right now, and I'm going to continue into the second division, doing a chapter per division, or video per chapter, excuse me, like I have been doing for the past year or two. And the reason it has basically took me 2 years to do chapters, the intro through the 6th chapter of the first division, is because there are a lot of things to consider. Well, there are, of course, a lot of things that I am doing. There's a lot of other videos I want to do, and I also want to make sure I want to be thorough. So there's a lot of things going into making a video about that. So I guess Heidegger talks about how care is related to being directly. One's concern for its projects, how Dasein comports itself towards its projects and its possibilities. That's care is at the root of the being of Dasein and of the being of being in the world. And care, or Sorge, is basically any concern for anything, whether it be concern for one's project, concern for one's counterparts, one's other beings in the world, concern for everything, care and concern for everything in the world. One doesn't just live in this world as a empty being that doesn't have anything to do with anything else, but Dasein and being has things to do with other things, and that occurs via concern and care. And as to how, sorry, the dishwasher is running, and as to how care relates to freedom is a different matter. It's all part of the same thing. Basically, what he's doing is taking a step back, trying to uncover the meaning of being, trying to look at everything. However, this is all a unity. This is all one and the same thing. And I talked about in different videos. I talked about thrownness, fallenness, and understanding. Thrownness is how you find yourself. Understanding is understanding of your possibilities and your potentialities, and how you can transform your existence through your 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 potentialities. And fallenness is a different matter. One can be fallen into the they, and how one can be fallen into this world. I had a better example, a better way of looking at that. I can find it. Okay, here we go. Thrownness is how one finds oneself. Design is thrown in the world in that it's not just this being that's out there, it's a part of the world. Understanding is it's how you can develop and transform yourself through comporting yourself towards your projects and your possibilities. And fallenness expresses Design's average everydayness, how one is immersed in the world and part of this world, fallen into this world. He also talks about fallenness as one how can be fallen into the they. He discusses in the 4th chapter the idea of being with others, or being with and solicitude, and how one can have care for others, and how one can be, and how other is prior to self, and how one can be fallen into the they, while one can be in a state of inauthenticity if you don't recognize yourself, if you don't recognize a uniqueness of yourself. However, you are also in a state of inauthenticity if you do not recognize of your state of relation with the they, or with other states of being, other people, for instance. One can be immersed in the they, in that you can lose your or use your identification with your uniqueness of yourself. You can lose your individuality through that. And how does this all relate to freedom, I guess, is a good question. This relates to freedom because how freedom possesses man, and man doesn't possess freedom. Freedom is ground upon which man must stand. Man is freedom himself. Freedom allows for the impossibility of correctness, and letting things be as they are. Thus, if you are inauthentic with the way things are, with the way you are, that can jeopardize your freedom. Even though freedom is a way things are, the truth of your freedom can be jeopardized. It never goes away, but the way that you recognize things, if you recognize things to be against the way they are, that can jeopardize your own freedom. Thus, in the idea of being towards death, which he talks about more in the 2nd division, being towards death is the state of being where you recognize that you are going to die, and that there is a state that there will come a time in your life where you will no longer exist. And if you don't recognize that, if you are not in a state of being towards death, then you are in a state of inauthenticity, because you are not recognizing things as they are. And being open to beings as they are is authenticity itself. And freedom is engagement in the disclosure or disclosedness of being as such. So freedom is kind of a different concept with Heidegger. It's not the idea of free will. I mean, there is a lot more free will if you are recognizing things as they are. So I guess the free will kind of almost conflicts with this, because there is a being, the world is a being, there is existence and there is being, and if one would be to neglect or deny the way things are, one's freedom would be jeopardized. And if you are not going to let things be as they are, if you're not going to, you will not allow being to disclose itself, and that's a way that nothingness can kind of seep into your own being, because you are almost in a state of pure negation. So, freedom exists in the existentialist way of thinking only if you are to recognize things as they are, if you are in a state of authenticity and good faith, if you're talking in Sartre's terms, or not bad faith. Bad faith is when you are in a state of inauthenticity in some way or another. If you're purely being for others, or being for oneself, or the being for itself, if you're purely one of those things, then you are in a state of bad faith, because that's another whole other thing. I mean, it's not a whole other thing, but it's a whole other philosopher that I don't want to get into at the moment. But freedom for Heidegger is simply that it's something that happens if you freedom is something that possesses man itself, and however it cannot be in a purely healthy way if you are not in a state of authenticity. So if you think I left something out, or sort of mess something up, let me know in the comments below.